iAntonio.media is a self-sponsored independent podcast brought to you by yours truly. The show is essentially an art project where we explore different career roles, perspectives, and converse with ideas in a non-moralizing, non-prescriptive, and non-pretentious way. You get to take from it what you want. It's not exactly made for children and at times may feature sensitive content based on a wide repertoire of unique lived experiences of people. Listener discretion is strongly advised. The show, as usual, explicitly promises no answers to anything whatsoever. Everyone here speaks for themselves. Nothing is cast in stone, and we all are, in true human fashion, expressly allowed to change our minds. iAntonio.media does not offer advice based on the professional opinion of licensed lawyers, psychologists, psychiatrists, teachers, moral authorities, or the like. I am myself a trainer, but more likely than not, I am not your trainer. When in doubt, consult a professional and do your own research. For more information, questions, or contributions, feel free to use the social handle at iAntonio_media at YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, what have you, or visit the official website www.iAntonio.com and use the contact form. Hi, it's iAntonio Patterson again, coming to you for another episode of iAntonio.media, and today we're doing episode 101. And it's going to be a quick one today. We're going to be looking at some feedback that I got from one of my fans. And I'm going to just be answering that question right here on the air for everyone because it might be relevant to you. And I'm going to be going into some of the political reasons why I do this fasting because it kind of ties into some of the feedback that I've been receiving. Many people default to the idea that I'm just doing it to lose weight. And that is far from the truth, actually. After 4 years, I'm doing it now for many reasons that are much deeper, much more profound than just losing some kilos over a few days, right? So, first of all, the feedback. I want to say thank you to Lily, and I'm going to go into depth with this feedback that I got. Now, in the last episode 100, I had the privilege of hosting Jenny, Dr. Jenny. Dr. Jenny was talking about moving to Costa Rica and the challenges she faced doing that, setting up her own business, and also some of the challenges she faced as a learner of English. And more interestingly, some of the benefits that you get from fasting. Jenny has found a way to achieve these benefits or, derive these benefits without having to go through the proverbial 3 days of suffering, right? There are other ways to get this good feeling, this feeling of euphoria that is associated with water fasting. There is so much more to it, so much more to our relationship, what we discussed before we went on the air. And I'm hoping that one day we'll do a part 2. But, just for a start, you can check it out, episode 100. It's a very special episode. I hope she feels as honored as I do for having taken part. Okay, so now to the feedback. Lily, I think you're being a little playful, when you ask me something like that. I speak about my goosebumps moments all the time. And as far as I'm concerned, it is very obvious that it is just something that happens when I'm feeling inspired, very motivated, very thankful for anything. Or, sometimes it happens from surprise. Now, at one point in the conversation with Jenny spoke about how she felt when she finally got a new English teacher. This teacher was very motivating to her. This teacher inspired her to give of her best in many ways. And one of the ways in which I think I understood that Jenny felt inspired was the appearance of this teacher. And I think as a student, it's okay to want to emulate your teachers a little bit sometimes. These are the persons sometimes who embody the values that you as a student aspire for, yes? And this embodiment is sometimes visual. In German, we speak of Vorbildfunktion. And that means that as a teacher, automatically, you are some kind of example. I don't necessarily want to be an example all the time. That's a burden, but it happens automatically. Teachers will always be looked up at by their students. And this is what happened. Now, in part of this whole appearance, this whole body language, probably, and I would say maybe you could say these days we like to talk about the aura. Yeah, we could talk about the charisma of this teacher, something that spoke to Jenny. And she went into quite some detail of just how moved she was by the whole way of how this teacher carried herself. And I felt, yeah, motivated by that because, I would like my students to also feel something that motivates them deeply, that encourages them to pursue the course of learning that we're going through, right? And that's basically what it's all about. In this case, Jenny also mentioned that in admiring the appearance of this teacher, she remembers many details, such as the curve of her lip, right? That's kind of, it sounds a little bit heavy, but if you're learning a language, sometimes you have to watch people's lips. So if someone has beautiful lips, expressive lips, you're going to notice that, right? And that's perfectly normal, I think, right? You have to look at, how the mouth is rounded and, how you form your words, how you pronounce the enunciation, what happens with your facial expression when you speak. So if you notice that the person speaking, the person in front of you speaking, is attractive and beautiful in their manner, nothing is wrong with that. And, it was just Jenny's enthusiasm, which I think was perfectly innocent. That was something that inspired me. And it gave me goosebumps moment, the motivation that she felt. All right, Lily, so I hope I cleared that up. And you suggested maybe that I was a little bit jealous. Maybe I was a little bit jealous, because I don't think anybody looks at my lips and feels motivated to learn a language. At least nobody has ever said that to me. So maybe I was a little bit jealous of that. But I wasn't jealous of being in the presence of such beauty. That's not what it was about, all right? So again, Lily, thank you for the feedback. And for those of you who don't know, Lily was actually a guest on my show for episode 88, where we spoke about values and attitudes having to do with the whole teaching practice. I really think Lily was just being a little bit playful, right? Because she understands, I think, full well what I mean. All right, now coming back to other feedback that I've received, many people seem to think that I do this fasting just to lose weight. Now, that's a pleasant side effect sometimes. I've been lifting weights for a while, and it's nice when you do something that just cuts off all the fat and, your muscle definition comes out, and it feels great. It feels fantastic. It's not necessarily lasting because half of that is like water weight, and it does come back. But the act of fasting, as I mentioned in episode 99, does have many medical benefits. If you're interested in finding out what these medical benefits are and some of the science behind it, feel free to check it out. Episode 99, I think it's called Hunger Value. And just listen to it, just in case, you're interested in the science of it. Now, there are also some political reasons why I do fasting. As I mentioned before, and I'm just going to go through this quickly. If you want to read some more, there's going to be more on the show notes page for this episode. You can read it. You can go into, some of the names and, the background, the sources of many of these things that I'm going to talk about now. But, I'm just going to break it down into 3 categories. Now, the first category is one of personal awakening and inner discipline. When you fast, you reclaim personal sovereignty. That's a political motive. Radical clarity against cultural noise. Right? Now, how that happens, you kind of step back from a lot of things. For example, eating 5 times a day, that keeps you cluttered and keeps you in some kind of rat race, right? And it's nice to just step back from all of that and take some time for yourself. Fasting as emotional and political temperance. Now, as I said, it's all about a certain minimalism. It's reducing your consumption, reducing taking things into your body, learning to live with less on purpose. As I said, it's all about discipline and about mental clarity. That's, touches on the health. And it's a great thing to do. When you stop eating for like 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks, as I've done, it does wonders for your sense of self-discipline and your mental clarity. It's all about proving a kind of resilience to yourself. It's improving the reputation that you have with yourself, the reputation that you have of being able to live a minimalist life. And all these things that I've just mentioned are very motivating. I think it's something good to do twice a year to it's like a debugging, it's like a reboot of your entire system. And I would recommend anyone to do it. Also, the women, even though I said, well, there are some things about the female fasting experience that are a little bit more complicated. And I would really recommend that if you're a woman and you want to try it out, there is a video that I posted on the show notes page of this. It's from a woman who helped me to plan my fast and to carry the whole fast thing out in a safe way. And I think she wrote a book called Fast Like a Girl, yes, which is quite popular. I'm not going to say it's a bestseller because I don't know. But the video is 14 minutes long. And for any woman out there who wants to try it out, I would suggest that you watch this 14-minute video to see the differences between the fasting experience of a man and that of a woman. I think having to do with the cycle, you have to pay attention to certain things. And as I said, I'm not privy to all of that information. It's best that you hear directly from her. Now, the other arc, let's say the arc of motivation for fasting is, I think I mentioned in the last episode and the one before as well, that there's this, it represents something that you benefit from that's actually tax-free, and I find that very interesting and very fulfilling. Now, the other reason is, I'm going to put it like this: it's a boycott as an embodied protest. So what I'm actually doing, I'm just boycotting food. I'm boycotting overconsumption. I'm boycotting eating what I don't need. I'm boycotting going out. And I'm doing all of this, not really as a protest against anyone in particular, but also just to prove to myself that I don't need a lot of the shit that we put into our bodies, right? So it's, as I said, a boycott as an embodied protest. Another reason why I do it, or it's another narrative I could use, or another term, it's a kind of a decommodification of survival. Right now, to live these days, our essential needs are all commodified. There is always some capitalist somewhere reaping profits from our daily needs. And this boycott is a boycott of consumerism as well. This is like the political dimension, right? It takes me away from that. It reminds me that I do have the freedom to step away from all of this, if even for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I feel fulfilled. It is also a kind of a celibacy from the hedonistic quality of eating all the time. I like to eat. I love to eat, right? I like to cook. I like to cook for people as well when I have time. I like to see the look on their faces when they taste that I put a lot of feeling and, sometimes, plainly said, love into my cooking. I enjoy serving for people, and I enjoy cooking for myself. I'll be eating shortly after this, yeah, and I will enjoy it because I'm not fasting right now. But, it is a freedom somehow, and you're saving money. You're stepping away from the overconsumption, right? Again, as I said, I do like food, but there are moments in life where you just have to step away from, and live a kind of a celibacy from these pleasures, right? Because a lot of these pleasures are, pleasures that are gonna enslave us at some point. And there is some little man somewhere with a big grin on his face making millions from our overconsumption, right? And, this sovereignty that I mentioned is just my little way, my little time, if only for 3 weeks, as I said, stepping away from all of this and reminding myself that I don't need all of that shit. I would recommend it to anyone. And, I use a word there, it's called celibacy, right? And, that word is a triggering, or it's a loaded word that tends to cause us to imagine other things, right? But what it means is just a departure from vice. That's what it is. It's about discipline. It's about reminding yourself again that you can live without certain things and stepping away from the slave-like existence to these pleasures that rule our lives and consume our time and energy and money. But this celibacy is just a way, it's about the food right now. But, this fasting thing is also symbolic of other things that we can step away from. I won't get into those right now. That's probably stuff for another episode. But it speaks to being able to step away. Now, the third arc is what I call a collective resonance and cultural subversion, even. This kind of fasting thing, a lot of people are interested in it. Some people do the intermittent fasting where, they just have eating windows. Some people go for 24 hours, some go for 48, some go for 72, some go for a week, some go for 2 weeks, some go for 3, right? But the interest in this kind of thing is kind of a contagious deviance. It's deviance because, the powers that be want us to keep feeding our faces. And I'm going to say it again. The powers that be want us to keep feeding our faces. And more people are recognizing that they can step away from all of that. It's a kind of an ethical signaling. It's a catalyst of sorts. Because I'm doing this podcast now, I'm telling you about it. I'm telling you about how I feel, how fulfilling it is, and that it's a benefit that you can derive that is tax-free. Can you believe? And this to me can be a catalyst for a collective awakening. That in itself is also very political. It's an anti-capitalist spiritual practice. It takes you away from these things, as I said. It helps you to step away from vice and to feel a sense of achievement when you do it. Again, it's an embodied political statement. It is in and of my body. It is me taking ownership of my body and my consumption practice. This hunger is mine, right? Nobody can take it away from me. And I did also a poem in, I think it was episode 99, so feel free to check it out. I also published the poem on its own on Instagram and also on TikTok for, anybody who likes poetry. I did a lot of poetry on this show. You can check it out because that is the depth to which I feel this push to, reclaiming sovereignty, as I said. Now, the physiological reset is also something that I discussed. I think it was in episode 99. We spoke a little bit about that in episode 100, and we went into depth of the cardiovascular benefits as well in episode 92 with Dr. Schneeweiss. And you know what? This touches now on the last thing. As I said, physiological reset and self-healing. This idea of self-healing is also upsetting to some people because you know what some people want to do? They want to sell you medication, right? And fasting cures or at least improves so many things. And I am certain, I'm not going to say they because I don't know who, but I am certain there are people there who would prefer if you went out and you self-medicated on something they're selling, while there is so much that you can do for yourself, for your mind, for your body, simply through reducing your consumption. In general, it gives a sense of freedom, right? And that is why I do it. It's not about losing 5 kilos, right? That's just a part of it. It's a side effect. So again, if you're interested in some more depth into a lot of these political things, Arc 1, Arc 2, and Arc 3, I go into much more detail on the show notes page for this episode. So if you're interested in finding out where all of this came from, just go there and read a little bit. I've also included some of the sources that have informed this episode. All right, so that's it. Again, thank you to Lily for inspiring this episode. And thanks again to Jenny, who took the time, Dr. Jenny, who took the time to talk to me for episode 100. Thank you again to Dr. Schneeweiss for the help, the medical background on the possible effects of fasting on your cardiovascular system. If you're interested, it's episode 92. And at this point, I just want to end as I usually do by saying again, thanks to you for listening. I'm looking forward to the next episode. With a small win is always a good way to begin. And bye for now.